Welcome back to the Well Woman Effect podcast. My name is Gamkhela Nefale, your local occupational therapist with a special interest in all things women's health, be it reproductive, physical, or mental health. We have it all. This is the platform where we shine light on the various stages and women's cycles that women go through. So today we are turning our attention to a very insightful topic. We are talking about the very beginning, the stage of puberty, where the emotional, the physical, the mental all changes at once. So this stage is often marked with silence, stigma, uncertainty, and yet it's the most powerful one that actually sets up our identity as women. Joining me today is the ever so beautiful Noleen Zulu, an education and leadership strategist and child mental health advocate. I think when I read that part, I was like, I wish we had children mental health advocates when we were children, per se, because there are stages where we can't even describe what we are going through. So we need people to actually give us the language of what is it that we are going through, be it we are girls or boys. We needed people like you. But I hope that this conversation that we're going to have is really going to shine light on the work that you do and bring us a little bit closer to helping our kids, especially as parents, navigate the different changes that our children are going through. But before we go there, I want you to introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of a background as to who is Noleen Zulu. Where did she start? What was the conversation that you had within your family about puberty?
Thank you so much, Gabo. Thank you for having me on this amazing platform. It's such an amazing opportunity for us to just touch base and have conversations on things that really matter to us. So I am a Noleen Zulu, like you said, an education and leadership strategist and a child mental health advocate. I've got almost 2 decades in the educational space, working with children from all ages, but I'm really passionate about the formative years because that's where everything begins. That's where the undoing happens as well. So I've done a lot of work in the educational space and also in educating myself on the optimal development of children. And now, because of that, I looked a lot at hindrances and barriers to learning. I've been focused on children accessing quality education, regardless of their social and economical backgrounds, and just how we can ensure that all children have
Yeah.
access quality to education, and also how we can look into ensuring that our children are thriving and schools are developing optimally, and that everybody is able to just be at the same level where there's no educational gap or divide. In that journey of mine, so I've done a lot of work with infant children, and in my journey, as you go, you start to learn things that draw you in per se. And the barriers and hindrances to learning are basically the things that pushed me into the advocacy work, where I looked at what are the challenges that children are facing, what's causing these challenges, and how can we step in regardless of how much you have in your pocket. So whether you have access to a lot of money, which means a lot of therapies and interventions, or minimal money, which means you have to do the therapy and the work, that's where a lot of things came in. What has made me focus a lot on children is my love for them. I grew up in a home filled with kids. My mom had five of her own, and then three cousins lived with us. So it was
Oh,
like a little school. There was
a whole
loads of
house.
love in that
Me.
home. My mom, who was very involved, and because of that, I think she set us up well. But then I realized that not everybody has that. Not everybody has the siblings to share life with, the relatives to share life with, and the mother who is very present, and a father. My father worked in and out, but the times that he
Very
was
cute.
very present. And because of that love, I think it's something that I've wanted everybody else to experience. So yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell. Conversations around puberty in my home were very weird, very weird. I am the second
Yes.
last born, so always the youngest child, so always uninvolved in serious issues. And I was a late bloomer. So I can recall being 13 and asking my father, what is a virgin? And he was like, talk to your mom. And being 14 and not having a
Oh,
period, but also having friends around me who were very mature and I lagged behind. So it was an awkward journey, but I was a very late bloomer. And I'm grateful that again, I had that security net because I know a lot of girls who are like me fall into the wrong side of
yeah.
information and therefore go through terrible things because these conversations are not had in their circles.
Yes. Yes. So I'm glad that you actually had that opportunity to speak with your father. I think a lot of people shy away from speaking to the male parent in our families because no, these things are not spoken about. They are not for the
Taboo.
men, they're for just the women, and we need to sit with just women, which is absolutely it's creating a barrier in society of understanding what women are going through. But I love that you try to engage your dad, although he said go talk to your mom. But it was a great
Yeah.
segue into the conversation of what a virgin is. Did you get your answer though?
No, I just
Of
got
what
a
a
virgin
virgin
is a good
is?
girl.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Good girl or not. I want us to talk about what is currently happening in South Africa. So there were stats that were issued that we saw across South Africa that over 90,000 pregnancies among girls were aged between 10 and 19, and including more than that, 2,300 were of the age 10 to 14. So when you hear those numbers, especially being in the education sector or in the children's mental health sector, what do these numbers say to you? Where are the gaps existing? Yeah, how are we preparing? Are we prepared as a nation to actually support our girls or teach them? Or are we just failing girls in totality?
So first of all, Gamu, it really breaks my heart because we are in the 21st century. This is not what should be happening because we are in the age of information. What these statistics basically say to me is that there is a lag in that information. There's a big gap. Now, that gap comes in terms of our emotional literacy. It means our girls are not being taught about themselves. So there's an issue in their emotional literacy, in their, can I say, gender and development studies basically where or life orientation where girls are not learning about their bodies, they're not being taught about their monthly cycle, they're not being taught about sex education, they're not being taught emotional
Yeah.
literacy, and there isn't enough awareness around these issues or support from the community, from the school, and from the home. Because basically what happens is if you maybe from 9 years old know that you get a monthly cycle and the monthly cycle happens in this way, and when you are sexually active, it leads to this. It first means that girl child is going to know exactly when they should be engaging in sexual intercourse and how their body works. There's also
Yes.
shame and stigma around these conversations. So if there is a girl who is having intercourse at 10 years old, she shouldn't be, but she's having the intercourse. She should be able to freely go and get help or get information or ask questions without being judged. Emotional literacy in that we need to learn that we love ourselves and that we value ourselves and that we are worthy and that we do certain actions with our bodies at a later stage in our lives, and that nobody can then trick you into saying if you are beautiful or if you want to be my partner then you must do ABCD. The boy child also needs to learn that there's a certain time when we should be engaging in these activities, and this is how we engage in them, and this is what we do to prevent certain things. Because also, if there is pregnancy, it means there's high risk of HIV and STIs. There's also an issue that could either be rape or child abuse. So there's a lot of issues that are actually not being looked into. And our role as the community is to educate the child, to break the stigma against these things, and to be supportive. Because also, being pregnant is not a bad thing. Creation is amazing. It is beautiful. It should come at a certain time. But even if it doesn't come at that time, it's something we celebrate. We don't shun. So we don't send our children away when they're pregnant. We accept the situation for what it is and we walk them through it. Now, at 10 years old, I also ask myself, if a child is having intercourse, where is the time for her to play on the streets with her friends? Where is the time where she's braiding her hair with somebody? Where is the time when
Yes.
she's learning how to cook in the house? Where is the time when she's reading a story or going crazy over a magazine? It means our children are also not getting access to the right entertainment and the right ways of living, because what are they exposed to? So it's very alarming. It's a scary situation, but it also means there's a lot of work for us to do. It is an opportunity for us.
Yeah, 110%. You know what I liked to hear from you is the emotional literacy. I've been preaching a lot about so what the woman effect does. We've been speaking a lot about body literacy. We're trying to get people to know more about their bodies. But with knowing about your body comes the emotional literacy as well. You need to know what your mental state is like. Now, how do
Mm.
we teach emotional literacy in spaces where there is silence, right? Because as we spoke about earlier, our households were, these conversations were very taboo. So, how do I, as a child, let's say living in the Eastern Cape, because that's where most of the 10-year-olds were coming from. And obviously, I do believe that there were a lot of predators and there's so much lack of information in very rural areas. But now, how do we, as people, as parents, as educators, how do we then bridge that gap of emotional literacy within the household where there's already silence?
So I think the first thing, Gamo, is our approach to everything. We need to shift our mindset. We need to re-educate ourselves for the times, the current times. A couple of years back, it was okay to not talk about these things, but there's been a shift in the way we live. We're even shifting from the industrial
Yeah.
revolution into an intelligent age. Okay, so we need to rethink and redo things, or apply ourselves to these topics, so to speak. So, first of all, as a parent, you need to educate yourself on, like you're saying, what is body literacy? What is emotional literacy? Where do I step in for my children? What do I need to do? A long time ago, we would wait on aunts and grannies to speak, but right now, our social fabric is such that the aunts aren't even there. So it falls upon me as the parent to say, I am going to intentionally sit down and have this conversation with my child. I'm going to create a safe space whereby not just I, the mom, but also the father is involved in this conversation, because it takes the stigma away, the fear away. And when there's no fear, there's openness to ask questions, to make mistakes, and to learn. So that's what we need to do from a personal level in your home. But also, when we're going to looking at policy needs to change, we need to actually have our curriculum focusing on these
Yeah.
issues, teaching children about their bodies from a young age, not just teaching them, these are my private parts you cannot touch. That is a song, but what does it mean? What does it mean to the child? Can they understand us? And are they
Yes.
learning tools on when it's being done? How do I deal with it? Okay. And then we can also go across from what I think industries. We can rope in social media to learn these things. How best can you teach a child something than to create a song about it, to do a campaign about it, to have influencers talk about my body and what does my body mean and what is statutory rape? What does it mean when I consent to sex before I should be, or before I'm regarded as an adult or as consenting adult? We can rope in influencers, we can use radio stations, we can use TV, we can have books and even films that talk towards these things. So filmmakers, youth industry can talk towards these topics where we're saying, okay, what's wrong with me discussing my period with my dad? What does my period mean? And in the rural areas, we don't have access to so
Yeah.
much of technology, but almost everyone has a TV. So if you have a TV and there's a program on TV that's teaching about it, you're reaching those children, but you're also reaching them in such a way that they feel comfortable and it's relatable. And then we go back to our teachers. They need to go back to school as well. They need serious teaching on these issues. Yes, we've gone in and we've learned how to be a teacher, but now let's do robust training on how to
Yeah.
deal with my emotions. So I feel like there's a lot we can do.
I actually love the fact that you touched on every aspect from starting within the household, because ultimately that's where everything begins, right? And then branching out into the schools. I think definitely the schools from my generation, when we were in school, the most that we got was we were separated. Number one, we got segregation, which to me spoke, okay, this is a shameful topic, right? So we need to be placed in a hall. We are showed how to put on a pad. We are showed that we do not play with boys. What is the saying? Books before boys, because boys bring babies. We are told that, and that's all that we need to run with. But nothing else. We are not told, I was not told that I'm going to feel moody. My energy levels are going to drop. I'm going to stop playing on the field because now I have to focus on whether or not this thing is going to move while I'm playing. Although the ads, yes, I love the ads that show girls being very active. Ultimately, on the first 2 days, I don't even want to engage in anything. I genuinely just don't want to be active or engaging in anything, but nobody prepares you for that. So policies definitely need to change. Within the household, we need to have better communication with regards to the actual change and what the change means. So I love your answer there. Now let's talk about based on your work and based on the children that you've worked with, what do you think is the biggest challenge or challenge that you've seen with the transition? Is it because there is too many voices on the internet that we are now seeing? Because now we are dealing with a generation that is here. They know. So, are they more anxious? Are they proud of their period? What are you seeing? What are the current trends that you're seeing with the children that you're working with, the girls that you're working with?
Okay, so with the girls, there's always definitely that, and I love that you brought it up, that shame towards periods. That a period is something that needs to be hidden, that a period is something that is secret, that it's something you cannot talk about. The challenge with that is if it's hidden and it's a secret and it's something that you should be shy of. Some people even say it's your days of cleansing, meaning you're alluding to you being dirty. The challenge with that is
Yes.
then you will need comfortable with your body. And when you're not comfortable with your body, you don't know power you possess. A person who understands their body and is comfortable with it is a powerhouse, and they can prepare themselves for all the challenges they encounter. Period education, like you said, it's very biological, very anatomical. It sticks to 28 days. Mark your calendar, have a pad. Don't let anyone see. Wash your pad because the pad can be used for religious, ritualistic, whatever. So it's not embraced. And that for me is a big red flag because that is the most amazing part of being a woman. That is how you procreate. That is how you bring life into this world. And that is how you function as a woman. For a woman, I feel like your cycle is almost like your thermostat, right? It controls you. And these little girls either have a lot of period poverty in
Yes.
terms of no access to sanitary towels, no access to knowledge, no access to help. For your period comes with pain, with headaches, with moods, with a lot of different things, and there's no access for the little girls. So yes, there are girls who are in privileged communities whose mom can run to the shop and get them an ibuprofen for the inflammation and all of that. But then there's the girl who has to use a cloth or a sock or tissue. That comes with
Yes.
shame and stigma. She also has pain and can't talk about it because it's a sacred thing. She also has to carry that burden of, if I miss, what am I going to do? How can I engage in sport? Because what am I supposed to do? How am I going to do this? So the girls are going through a phase where being on your period is so almost embarrassing. And we have a lot of work to do in terms of,
Yeah.
first of all, the simple things like having reusable pads. And I think, again, I always go back to this. We should be in a
Yes.
state where sanitary towels, especially in the rural communities, are free and are there and should be accessed at school
Yes.
because that's the best place to get all these girls. So I feel like we've got a lot of work to do towards that, but more than anything, in teaching the girl to celebrate that time of her month.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Now I want to bring you, I think with the celebration, I want us to now speak about your initiatives of Read and Bloom and Mind Matters, right? Okay, first explain what Read, Bloom and Mind Matters is all about before we go into the practical tools that we can apply into celebrating.
Okay, so Read and Bloom is emotional and literacy well-being. It's teaching children about their emotions, but it's for the younger children. So for children between the ages of 4 to 7 years old, we teach the children on their emotions, on how to identify them, how to name them, and how to get help if they need help in terms of their emotions. If they feel extremely sad or they're worried or they're anxious, what it means and how to communicate these feelings. Because for me, the initial alarm was knowing that a 5-year-old child tried to commit suicide in South Africa. And when we think of that, what do
Yeah.
5-year-old children know about death? And what do they know about suicide? But because of the amount of sadness that this child
Mm.
carries, they just want to stop the sadness. So it's trying to give these children the tools they need, the healthy coping tools they need, but also to open up the conversation about emotions with children. And through books, we can do that. Through books, we can tackle emotions. We can help them identify emotions. We can take them through these emotions, but also create a situation where at home they are having these conversations with their parents. And how do we do that? For those children who are in the disadvantaged communities, if I give them a storybook and they take it home, the mother has to read the book or whoever is the caregiver. And that is a bonding opportunity
Yeah.
or bonding moment for this child and their caregiver. And when they bond like that, it's easy for them to just break down that barrier and say, in the story, for example, if it's a nursery rhyme and Humpty Dumpty fell and cracked his head, the child is asking, but how did he crack his head? So in that, there's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
communication. There's going to be a lot of emotions explored. We're going to learn happy, we're going to learn sad, and then we now know when I am angry, I can do A, B, C, D. Then we move on to
Mm.
the next one, which is Mind Matters, which is for preteens and teens. Mental health awareness is always relegated to the older children, not children, older people. So people above 20, the adults, that's when we
Yes.
start talking mental health. We never think of it for the teens and the preteens. And now what we're trying to do with these guys, it's similar to Read and
Mm.
Bloom, but it's more in depth. It's now going into your emotions, how to find healthy coping techniques, how to look for help, how to speak to the next person about help. But it also talks to issues of self-worth, self-awareness, self-love. It talks to issues of bullying. It talks to issues of peer pressure. It talks to issues of body image, which is what our teenagers battle with a lot. There's a lot of sadness, depression, and anxiety amongst these kids, and a lot of them opt out when they go through a hard thing. Mind Matters helps them to sail the storm, to deal with whatever you're facing head on, to tackle it so that you can move on to the next level. So with Mind Matters, we also draw in like the chatbots where we'll put a number in your phone so that if you're feeling extremely sad or you just don't want to be alive, then you mention someone and say hi, and that chatbot will respond. So issues like lifeline, SADC, you just put the tools and give them to them. And healthy coping techniques, taking walks,
Yes.
dancing, listening to music, going on things that will help you, being part of a social club, being part of a riding club, doing knitting, the works. Those are things we look at in Mind Matters so that our teens are able to navigate the life issues and challenges and just be able to deal with it. Sometimes our children are battling with issues that we as parents are battling with and we're not aware of it. So if there's issues in the home, there's fights, there's no money, there's sickness, it affects our children, and they try and, for lack of a better word, they try and erase themselves from the situation, and you don't want that. So they fall into things like substance abuse, the drug abuse, or they become very violent, they go into gangs and all these things that we want to avoid. So that's the scope of the both of the programs, to try and help the children find a better coping mechanism as opposed to the unhealthy coping techniques. I talk a lot, so I think I've forgotten
I
part of
must
the
say,
question.
no, don't worry. Well, I'm gonna touch on the question again, but honestly, I have to
Yeah.
applaud you. I don't think you were here for such a time as this because a lot of our kids, and then I'm seeing it through mine, we have to teach them their own emotions. And I think and
Yeah.
how to respond to emotions correctly. So the work you're doing is highly commendable. As a teenager, woo, the things that are going on in your mind. So for
Yeah.
you to have mind matters, I think really sets up a lot of teenagers that are actually being, not say neglected, they're not necessarily neglected, but they are also neglecting how they are feeling. And we are haphazardly just going through, because the things that matter now is getting good marks, being able to go into a great varsity or whatever is priority. In some instances is what are we going to eat? There's certain socioeconomic factors that also pile into just us as people. But absolutely love your platforms. Now, how can we as individuals, creators, or yeah, how can we now bring a celebratory factor into the books that we are exposing our teens and kids? Because we need to now celebrate this new transition of life, right? I know there's Dr. Kanyile, she and her crew, yeah, I'll call them a crew. They authored a book called DD Talks. They talk about period, going through the period cycle. But how can we bring that most importantly, into the spaces of where children exist, where our teenagers exist?
So that's such a good question. And before I answered, I just want to circle back. You mentioned something to me about what's going on in the mind of a teenager. And one of the things I know, not one, some of the things
Yeah.
I know our children battle with is self-regulation and healthy conflict resolution. And the reason why they battle with it because they don't see it in the home. They're not seeing us resolving issues amicably. Yes, we can have a fight, but what happens post-fight? We walk away, we close doors, and life continues. So we
Yes.
teach our children that it's okay to be aggressive and angry and shout, but we don't show them the side where in the bedroom we then talk to my partner and say, you know what, okay, how are we fixing this? So the one thing that stands out for me is let's be open about the things that we battle with. We're already exposing them to the issues. So let them see the right way. So you can fight things out, but you must come to a point of understanding and peace, right? And then also, so that is more of conflict resolution. Then self regulation. I don't know why we're afraid to be vulnerable around our children. Like why you can't cry in front of your child and why you can't lose your head and then come back together in front of your child. So it's okay for you in the car to say, get off the road. And then say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I was just so frustrated. Because then children learn that, oh, okay, this is
Yes.
normal. Or to cry, you bump you on the stove, on the wall, ow, this is sore. And then you get something for it and say, oh, I feel better. So children need to see the real things. It's also, I've had such a horrible day. My boss is super mean and I cannot stand him. But I just need 5 minutes to calm down and then I'll come back. And then tomorrow say, I actually had a talk with my boss about this and actually they didn't understand or ABC. Our children need to learn that, right? And then when we come back to
Yes.
celebrating are. Let's start with the education. Let's start with it's okay to have your period. You're not going to feel okay. You're going to have this or that or none of the above. And that's okay. And this is how we deal with it. So, for example, your period is starting. Let's eat bananas because they elevate our mood. Let's get on the road and walk because when we walk, we exercise that pelvic muscle that is normally cramping for the flow to come out. Let's drink tea because that's healthy. But there's something I started doing personally, which I think anybody can adopt is when your child begins their period, give them that pamper pack or that period celebration, get a box, put in pads, put in panty liners, put in chocolate, put in something nice like a lip gloss, put in a little perfume and celebrate. You have become a woman. This is for you. This is your pamper pack. Teach your child how to sit in the bath with hot
Yeah.
water so that they can hot compress those painful areas. Teach them to soak their feet. You don't need a spa. You can have a bucket. Look for lavender, plant it in your garden. Look for roses. Those are simple ways to celebrate without necessarily going out of your way. And then looking for the literature, like you said, the book by Dr. Kanyile, make it available, make it accessible, and talk about it. one thing I dislike about authors is they do a book launch and they stop there. Make more noise about it so that we know. You
Yeah.
know how we have our normal newspaper that comes once a week? That is such a powerful tool. If you
Yes.
put information in newspaper, when children are looking for all the things they want to buy, they see that story as well. But let's rope in our male
Mm.
counterparts. So with rope in our male counterparts, let's have conversations like fathers and daughters podcasts where we talk about this is what your daughter goes through. What do you think about it? What do you want your daughter to know? So let's not relegate it to one gender
Mm.
because then it also becomes that secret taboo thing. But rope everybody in and let's
Yes.
celebrate it. Let dad buy the pads. Let dad get the heat patch
Hmm.
because there's heat patches you can wear for 12 hours. Tell him your daughter needs this, get it and give it to her. It's not taboo. What's taboo is for him to then go in and see her washing her pots and putting on a pad. But bringing everything
Yes.
in, make it a combined effort, not just one way. And I think that is one thing that we can do. And guys, we can do so much in terms of celebrating the girl, especially in our schools. And when you spoke about sex
Yeah.
education being put in one room and another room, I think that is absolutely bizarre. I think when we talk about these things, let's have our boys in the room because there's also stuff that's happening with them. There's also puberty happening to them and make it a combined conversation so that it's not embarrassing.
No, totally 110% agree. I love the fact that you've now made pamper packs for yourself. You can feel it coming. Ugh, let me just separate and isolate and just try and keep calm at the same time, be approachable while everything around you is just going haywire. What
Yeah.
language do you think we need to instill now? What language would you suggests people now use when we talk about periods, our puberty, around the reproductive phase? What language should we be using instead of I know that we can do it all. I know we are strong, we are stoic, but whew, sometimes we don't need to be strong and we don't need to be stoic. Sometimes we are going through pain and we want to express that we're going through pain. But what language can we really instill in the future generation that we use to communicate about what we're going through?
That's such a powerful question because words are power. There's so much power in the
Yeah.
words we use and how we use them. Can either totally unravel or undo something, or they can build it up and make it beautiful. You spoke about stoicism. I hate, for lack of a better word, stoicism, because what it says is that we should glorify struggle and we should be comfortable with struggle.
Yeah.
We should not be comfortable with struggle and suffering. We should be able to acknowledge it when it happens, but we shouldn't be comfortable with it because it is not the right thing. There's nothing good about suffering and celebrating suffering. Okay, so first of all, we need to, in terms of our language, let's start by embracing our bodies. Body positivity is the first thing. So, body positivity means I look at myself where I am and I know that I am a masterpiece. There is no one like me, and there's no one who can actually walk in my shoes. So, I am perfect as I am. I have my loads and I can carry them gracefully. Then let's look at
Oh, I
puberty.
love
That
that
is such an
affirmation.
amazing. Feel like we should stop saying puberty and look at it as coming of age, which is the most amazing thing because your body transitions. So you know how a caterpillar starts as an egg and then goes into a caterpillar and then it metamorphosizes into a butterfly. That same cycle happens with us. And the part that we should be embracing the most is the part that we suppress the most because in terms of human reproduction, you are most fertile in your teen years, believe it or not. Your body is functioning optimally in your
Yes.
teen years, but that's the time when boys are being taken into the mountain and being told, I don't know what they're told, I'm not there, but girls are being told periods are something that they should hide. Instead, we should embrace it, we should
Yeah.
accept it, we should, like I said earlier, celebrate it. So there is nothing wrong with naming your period as a period. That is what it is. Us saying the month, the cycle, the
Yeah.
moon, that that brings in the stigma. So let's call things as they are. I am on my period. I have the flow. I am feeling pain. To be able to name the things, you also need to understand them. And a woman has 4 cycles of her life. There's the week she's on her period or actively bleeding. There's the pre-menstrual week. There is the post-menstrual week. Then there's the 1 week where you get to be your actual normal self, right? So when we educate the
Yeah.
child on those things, then they know that, okay, right now I am ovulating, I am fertile, and therefore, if I engage in sexual activity, I will fall pregnant, right? That conversation said exactly that is the language we need. We need open words. Let's demystify things because it makes life so simple. And I'm not saying we should go around throwing around six everywhere, but what I'm saying is if we share the knowledge,
Yeah.
if we share it responsibly, then it's easy to talk about it. In the same way, a boy's voice will break. He's going to have wet dreams. He's going to go through a period of
Yeah.
being attracted to every female, right? We need to have those conversations, and
Mm.
it's normal for them. It's normal for men to wake up with an erection every day, and if they are not, those are signs, right? But we make it seem like it's a bad thing. So let's
Yeah.
call things as they are. Let's call things as they are.
Mm.
Say them as they are, but do it from a point of love. Don't do it from a point of judgment. Have
Yeah.
conversations from a point of love, of wanting to empower the next generation.
I love what you said about we need to call things what they are. I remember there was a time where I'm like, I wasn't sure what to use for my body parts because my child was not asking me, what is that? What is this? What is this? And I was like, should I use, I get it. I'm Betty, so now we'll use certain things like bonani for the vagina or certain cutesy little words. But honestly, ultimately, when we go into the doctor and we need to be advocating for ourselves, we actually need to use what it actually is. And I think having those conversations from a young age and teaching that yes, these are your body parts, these are their names. Call it penis, call it vagina. Those are what they are and what their uses are. It gives them a better body literacy. It gives them knowledge and insight into, okay, this is what's happening. When I go to look for that help, I now know what I am referring to and what I am going through. So I absolutely love that. We need to start changing. I think that also then links up with the next question of it gives the girl or boy child, and I love that you put the boy child into the equation. It gives them that confidence to now lead differently. I think having a higher form of knowledge with yourself and about yourself puts us in spaces where we can walk with confidence, speak with confidence, and lead confidently, knowing that there's just confidence oozing. We know who we are self-aware. So now, in our supporting girls at this age, like what is the ripple effect that you believe girls now will have as future women? How do you see the current generation that we are influencing or teaching or guiding? How do you see them as future leaders? What does it look like in your view, in your personal view? What do women now, these girl children now look like as women?
So there's 2 things. There's what I envision and what I am seeing. What I envision is a world where there
Okay.
is bold, powerful women who walk in their truth, who accept themselves for who they are, and are able to dominate in industries because they have self love and self awareness and self worth. Meaning they will go for anything they believe in and go for anything they aspire for because of their acceptance and knowledge of themselves. What I am seeing is a generation
Yeah.
of children or women who will have post traumatic stress disorder, who will be very sad, and who are exposed to a lot of abuse. This is because currently we're not doing enough for the girl child. We're not saying enough, we're not accessible enough, and we're not helping enough. So we are still falling way behind in terms of delivering knowledge to these children, delivering access to these children. And because of that lack of access, there is open doors to abuse, there's open doors to trauma, there's open doors to feeling unworthy, okay, being stifled, feeling like your place is
Yeah.
in the back and not the front, that you are subservient. So this comes, it stems from a young age where when we do, let's say, sensory and imaginary play, women are not, girls are not encouraged to believe or dream. There's that gap, I've forgotten the correct term for it, where children from the age of 7 stop believing, girls stop believing I can be an astronaut. They stop believing I can be a doctor. They stop believing I can be a data
Yeah.
actuary, and rather think maybe I can be a nurse, maybe I can work at till, maybe I can be a general manager. But they stop believing, and that's because we stop exposing them and we stop affirming them as the parents. When we buy toys for our children, you have young children. When you buy a toy for your daughter, the first thing you're buying is a Barbie doll, you're buying a pram, you're buying her lime, you're buying her
Yeah,
lipstick, you're
girl.
buying her. So it's a gender set toy which break that imagination. They crush that imagination. Whereas you could walk into a shop today and buy your child a wheelbarrow and buy them some gardening tools. You can buy them a robot making kit. Then you are encouraging
Mhm.
her imagination and you are giving her that I can do this, I can achieve this, right? And as that child grows, even in the classroom, we've
Yeah.
got that now you're on your period. You don't want to be around the boys, so you want to sit in the back. Your granny tells you nobody should see this. So you already start to feel like I need to hide something and there is shame. And that continues. You meet a man who, or an older partner, or anybody who then starts to lie to you and say to you, come here, let me do this with you. Then you will feel like a woman. Okay. And then that goes into our issues
Yeah.
of rape and the predators that abuse the girls because the girl is not being empowered enough to know that this is what I want and this is what I get, and nobody can force me into this. And then we have those who do, like you spoke about, the teenage pregnancies. What happens to those kids? They are treated so bad. They are shunned from society. They are taken to other relatives
Mhm.
far away to live. They are forced to either go into a marriage. They don't want to hide the shame. All those opportunities are taken away from them because they've had a child. And yet, that I'm a Christian and I believe a child is a gift from God. Doesn't matter what package it comes in, whether it comes through teen pregnancy or it comes through rape, it's a gift from God. Right? So when your daughter comes home and she says, Mom, I'm pregnant, are you yelling at her or are you saying, okay, let's fix this? Because when you show up for her and you say, I
Yeah.
will take you to prenatal classes, I will help you, I will walk you through this. We are going, you should be there when she's delivering that baby. And then you can take over and say, okay, I'm taking the child and I'm giving you an opportunity to go back into your life and to build a future for yourself. Then that woman can be celebrated. So women are carrying a lot, and then they go into marriages believing that they need to
Mm.
carry everything on their own, that they need to be stoic, like you said, and have the baby, look after the child, work, run the home, eat, all on their own. And
Sure.
there's the postpartum depression. So a lot, women are carrying a lot. We need to educate each other and support each other and be there for each other so that the future for the woman is amazing. We need to be able to see a woman who gets
Yeah.
up and goes to the moon, who's an astronaut, and comes home and can have a child. And that's okay. We need to see more female
Yeah.
presidents. We need to see women dominating in industries. The only way we can do that is let's put out the information. Let's do it. Let's do it with our friends. When when
Yeah.
your daughter comes home with her friends, be part of the conversations. Ask them, what do you think about this movie? Let's watch it together.
Mm.
What do you think about let's build a there's this robotics going on. Let's try and make a robot together. And also let's talk about the boys. What kind of boy do you want to date and why? Why are you attracted to this guy? And then when you have these open channels of communication, you deal with a lot of stigma. Sorry, I'm going to take you back a little bit. You spoke about a lot of pregnancies coming from the
That's
Eastern
fine.
Cape in the rural areas. One of the things I
Yeah.
also think is happening with our children, they're being raised by the grannies. And the grannies are from a different dispensation
Yes.
and a different level of knowledge. So they're doing the best according to their times, but it's enough for the current times. So gogos give smiles, gogos give love, but when we
Yeah.
give those gogos wisdom, empower the next generation.
Yes. Sure. Noleen. If people haven't met you, I first met you, I think this is late to say, but I first met you at the meaningful events. And I knew that this girl has wisdom from just above. It's so great to sit in your presence and hear you decode everything that we are going through in society and how it might look in the future if we choose to still continue on the same trajectory that we are going. I think what I'd like for you to, as a final bringing it all together, what is your final word or your message to our policy makers? Because ultimately, things, how society or how communities are functioning, we are at the realm of the people who we put in leadership, right? We are seeing everything moving current. We just need to watch the news to know what's happening in the world and in our own South African political system. But what do we have to say to those policy makers who are seated at positions that are able to affect change globally, nationally, in this instance, nationally? What is your final word to them? Because we've said everything on the ground. We've said a lot and a mouthful to the people who are on the ground, which is very pertinent. But the policymakers, what do we have to
Yeah.
say to them?
Thank you for that question. I think the first thing is for the policymakers, please remember that every decision that you make doesn't affect you now, it affects the generations to come. If I plant a tree today, I'm not
Yeah.
hoping to sit under its shade, but I'm hoping for the next generation to sit under that shade. So when we make our policies, let's consider these children that we have or we are yet to have and what the future is going to look like for them and reimagine that future. Have those future studies or future thoughts where we think when we're not there, what's going to be happening and what can I do to make sure that life is better for them. So let's look at things like continuous development programs, but that are accessible and are free and are compulsory, such that if I'm a teacher and a CPD, one of my CPDs is emotional literacy, for years to come, teachers
Yeah.
will be able to teach that and be able to continuously learn about that. Let's also consider the things that we have held as taboo and reshape and reform things. So, like you were saying earlier, how it's hard to talk about our period, let's consider that maybe in the classroom, sex education is vital as anything else, as vital as having maths in your curriculum. Let's make it its own separate curriculum, right? And then let's look at avenues and ways to ensure that children have access to the things they need. Okay, so we speak a lot about period poverty. Maybe someone sitting in finance could say we will take 1 cent from every person who is banking and put that into a fund that ensures that
Mm.
every school has sanitary towels for the girl child. But also, let's also put in a fund to say every boy child is going to go through a training on how to handle their body and how to handle women. Or maybe we can have policies where we teach people how to resolve conflict. So there's a lot of gender based violence. If that can be a course that is taught for free, accessed by everyone. So going into
Mm.
communities and dealing with religious sector, partnering with your medical side, partnering with your civil society, and come together to deal with these issues. Let's do that so that our country is not topping charts of gender-based violence, of suicide, of poverty, of there's too many things we are well known for which are the wrong things. Let's try and fix those things. Let's review our
Yeah.
policies from finance sectors, from educational sectors. Let's think about putting everything together for the next generation and for generations to come. I always talk about how Desmond Tutu coined Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. That has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
It's time to coin more things that stand the test of time. Mandela said, no one, no child should be left behind. Let's take that actively and run with it. Let's not leave any child behind, whether their mother is working or not, whether their mother lives in Houghton, in a
Yes.
leafy suburb, or is found in a slum in Deep Scoot. Every child should have access. And that's my design. That's my clarion call to everybody in policy. Let's give every child equal access, quality education, and access to the things they need.
Oh, I am so happy that you said that. Okay, if people want to find you or get in contact with you, where can they look you up? How can they get in contact with you? How can actually our children get access to your Read and Bloom and Mind Matters? Because that's very important.
Okay, so to find me, I'm easy to find on socials. It's Education with Noleen. You'll find that on TikTok. Education with Noleen on Instagram. On LinkedIn, it is Noleen Zulu. For the program, I go to the schools. So the best thing that anyone can do is just send me a message and say, I am at this school. Please, can you come to our school with the program? Or my children go to this school. And then we openly have a conversation. I try and use their free periods to go in and teach because that's where you find all the children. And I take an hour per session with the children. Most of the time, it is pro bono. Sometimes I need a bit of support in terms of the stationery that the children need, but a lot of these trainings are pro bono. So message me, send me a DM. I'm very available and I'm ready. Go on to the socials as well.
And thank you so much for availing yourselves. We will definitely drop all your contact details on this podcast, but thank you so much for giving us such an insightful approach to menstrual health, to the discussion around periods, the coming of age. I'm not calling it puberty anymore. I am so glad that we got to engage on it. I feel like a lot of people are going to relate because education is something that we have to, it's a rite of passage, right? So now bringing the practicality into it, a lot of people can now grasp what can we do, and hopefully from this conversation we'll see a lot of change makers coming to the platform and rising up into this space where we are giving emotional intelligence, body literacy, how best we can navigate big this thing that has been made so big, and how we can just take it bite size until everybody is comfortable with having such conversations. So thank you so much for honoring this invite so gracefully and so beautifully. I am deeply grateful.
Thank you as well, Kamwa. It's nice to meet like-minded people who share the same. I really appreciate you and for bringing the podcast to the people because they need to hear the messages we share.
Thank you. And that brings us to an end of this episode of the Well Woman Effect. To get a hold of Noleen, we will be putting all her contact details in the description. And until next time, be graciously woman.